Welcome to the Quick Start tutorial series. In this video, we will be creating our first AgileXRM process, a bit of the context of where we are and what we are going to do. This tutorial series explains how to create a leave request app for the employees of our organization. In Stage 0, we deployed and set up the basic components. This should already be done. In this Stage 1, we will create a basic approval process with AgileXRM. In Stage 2, we will create an AgileDialog to guide the creation of requests. In further videos, we will add more functionality to our app. In this tutorial, we will show you how to design a leave request approval process to manage the leave request lifecycle with AgileXRM. Please note that you must have already completed Stage 0 preparation to have the necessary components and configuration. If you have not, please refer to the corresponding video. The business requirements of the process we need to create. Employees can submit new leave requests, creating a new record on a table. A manager must approve or reject these requests within an allocated time. Requesters need to be notified when their request is approved or rejected. Requests can be categorized and, depending on their type, might require HR approval. A process needs to manage the life cycle of a request, route the corresponding approvals, and notify the decisions taken. To cater for these requirements, we are going to create a leave request approval process. This is the process diagram a business analyst would have designed using a modeling tool. The process starts when a new leave request is created and waits for the request to be submitted, updates the status, and sends a task to the manager to approve the request. If it's approved, certain leave types also require HR approval, creating a task to the corresponding team. If the request is approved, the status is updated accordingly, and an email is sent to the requester. Likewise, if the request is rejected by any participant. In this video, you will learn how to create a new process template, use stencils, shapes, add swim lanes, align and style shapes. You will also learn to use the main entity and the process context. Use different ways to define activity participants using teams or dynamic queries. You will configure task activities to use different task forms from Dataverse. Also learn how to define conditions in the process single and multiple condition. Learn to use the shapes to set status of the request, send email, and therefore use email templates. Remember, you can improve your knowledge with additional videos. Let's first explore the Leave Request app. We open a browser and head to our organization page. We open the Leave Requests app. Go ahead and create your first leave request and get familiar with the data structure. To create a new request, you must provide the following information. Reason. Requester. Leave type. Start date. End date. And optionally, additional comments. To design the approval process for our leave requests, we will use AgileXRM Envision. This is an add-on to Microsoft Visio that allows you to graphically create agile dialogues and processes that are connected to your Power Platform environment. When we open Microsoft Visio, Envision loads automatically and displays the environments we have access to. We select our environment and connect. On the left, we have the Environment Explorer with the applications that we have created organized in folders. To create a new application, we click on Application and give it a name, Leave Request. This application will contain the process models of our app. We select our application and we click Process Model to create a new one. The settings window is displayed. In the Entity tab, we select the main entity for our process. First, we click the blue link, Retrieve Enabled Entities, to see the list of tables. This is only to have access to the table's metadata at design time. We select Leave Request. In the Scope tab, we leave the option Automatic Only option checked. In the Naming Convention tab, we type our process name, and we click OK to close this configuration window. A new diagram appears in the main area with the Start and the Stop shapes. These shapes must always be present in our processes and are unique. We see an AgileXRM toolbar on the top with different options. We have several stencils with shapes on the left, and we have a property pane on the right that will change depending on what is selected. This diagram has 2 stages or swim lanes by default. We double-click on the first one to change its name. We set it to Draft to match the status reasons of our leave requests. Initially, employees create requests in draft status, as this is the default status. But this does not mean they want to submit these requests for approval just yet. When the requester is ready to submit the request, they must change the status to Submitted, and this will continue the approval process. To reflect this requirement in our process, we will use the shape Wait for Update from the Automatic Activities XRM stencil. We locate this shape and drag it from the stencil to our process. We press F2 to rename this shape. We call it Wait for Submit. To configure this step, we click Query Expression link. The Query Expression Editor window is shown. Here we configure the condition that must be met for the process to continue. In this case, we will wait until the requester has changed the status to Submitted. The table Leave Request is automatically selected because we chose it as the main entity for this process. To do this, we select the Status Reason column. Typing in the quick filter box shows the matching columns. We leave the operator as equals. We select Submitted. We click OK to complete this configuration. We connect this shape with the Start step. After the request is submitted, it will require approval from the requester's manager. We rename the second stage to Manager Approval. The first thing we will do in this stage is set the status of the request accordingly. To do this, we will locate the shape Set Status from the Automatic Activities XRM stencil. We drag this shape to our diagram in the second stage. We press F2 to rename it to Set Manager Approval. To configure this step, we simply set the property status. We select Manager Approval Active, and the configuration is complete. A hint: the shortcuts for Connector Tool and Selection Tool are Ctrl+3 and Ctrl+1 respectively. We use them to connect the new shape. To create an approval task for the manager, we drag a new shape into our diagram. From the Manual Activities XRM stencil, we select Task Activity and drag it to our diagram. This will create an out-of-the-box task activity in Power Platform. We name this activity Manager Approval. To set the approver of this task, we configure the participant's property in the Properties pane. We click on the ellipsis button of the Configure Participant property. In the Participants window, there are several options to choose from. In this case, we will select Query User and click Configure button. In the Advanced Find Query window, we configure the query to search for the participant of this task. Here we can use any of the Dataverse tables. We simply type to search for a specific table. In this case, we select the User table to locate a specific user. We configure the condition where the user equals the requester of this leave request. We select Equals as the operator. We select the requester from the process context. To open the context, we type $opening brace to open the process context window. We switch to the Context tab, and we access all the details of the current leave request. We simply select the column Requester and click OK. In the Columns tab, we configure the outputs of our query. We look for the Manager column and add it to the right, and we remove the existing User column. Our advanced query is correct, and we click OK, and OK again. Now that we have defined the participant, we define the form displayed. In this case, we will use a task form that was deployed as part of the solution. We click the Activity Form property and expand to display the list of available forms. From this list, we select Manager Approval Task. The process will enforce that this is the form used to complete the task. To retrieve the manager's decision and use it in our process, we use the Save CRM Fields to property. We click on the ellipsis button and we are presented with the Save Activity Properties window. We use the existing row, expand the field combo, and locate the column Manager's Decision, and type bool Manager Approves on the attribute column. This will create a new variable in our process to use at a later step. The configuration is complete. so we click OK. This step is now configured. We connect it with the previous one. We add a new step, a single condition shape from the generic stencil to our canvas. The condition window opens. We give the condition a name. Manager approves. We specify the data binding to a context variable by clicking the ellipsis button. In the context window, we select Bool Manager Approves and click OK. You can see this creates a decision diamond with two possible outcomes, yes or no. And we connect this condition with the previous shape. After the manager approves, leave requests categorized as unpaid leave or other require the HR team approval. We need to add more swim lanes or stages to our process. We right-click on the second stage and select Insert Swim Lane Vertical After. We rename the new stage to HR Approval. We make some space in this swim lane. If approved, we want to send this request for an additional HR approval if the leave type is unpaid leave or other. For this, we will add a multiple condition from the generic stencil to take a different path depending on the leave type. We click Advanced Mode. In the Conditions window, click New to create a new expression. In the expression editor, we click Name and select Process Context. In the Process Context window, we switch to Context and select the column Leave Type. For the operator, we choose == from the number section. In the value part of the expression, we type 2, which is the internal value for unpaid leave. We click the plus button to add a new row. We change the logic operator to OR. In the new row, we select the name, click Process Context, switch to Context, and select Leave Type. We choose the == operator from the number section, and we type 3 in the value field, which corresponds to Other. We can validate that our expression is correct by clicking on the Validate button. Our expression is correct. We click OK. In the Conditions window, we rename this new expression by selecting and pressing F2. We name this Unpaid Leave or Other. This condition configuration is complete, and we click Close. The multiple condition created two outcomes, our condition, and the default outcome else. We connect this new step with the Yes branch of the previous decision step. If we require HR approval, we set the request status accordingly using a Set Status shape from the Automatic Activities XRM stencil. We name this step Set HR Approval and configure the status property accordingly HR Approval Active. We connect to the corresponding outcome of our multiple condition. Next, we will add a new task activity from the Manual Activities XRM stencil and drag it to our diagram. We name this activity HR Approval. We configure the participants in a similar way. We click Configure Participants and select the option Team and choose our HR team from the list, and click OK. The form this team will use to complete this task is a specific task form deployed as part of the solution. We configure the activity form property and select HR Approval Task from the drop-down menu. In the same way we did before, we configure the Save CRM fields to property to bring the value of HR Decision column into a new variable to use in our process. The configuration for this task is done. We connect the set status with the HR approval task. To branch our process based on HR's decision, we add another single condition shape and configure as we did before. In this case, using the variable saved from the HR approval task. And we connect this condition with the previous shape. At this point, we need two new swim lanes or stages with the two possible final statuses of our leave request. Rename this stage to Approved. We can style stages as we prefer. We select the stage, go to the Model menu, and under Colors section, we choose a fill color for our stage. This one with a shade of green. We add a new stage and rename it to Rejected, and color it with a shade of red. We make this swim lane wider. To organize our process, we bring the stop shape to the end of the process. We add one set status shape from the Automatic Activities XRM stencil to the Approved stage. We name this step Set Approved and set the status property to Approved Inactive. We add another set status shape to the Rejected stage. Name it Set Rejected and set the status property to Rejected Inactive. We add one Send Email shape from the generic stencil to the Approved stage. We name this step Notify Approval. To configure the email, we click the Configure blue link. In the email configuration window, there are several settings. We change Create D365 activity to Yes. This creates an email activity in Power Platform so it can be tracked accordingly. We click the plus button to add a new template. We click New to add a new template. Give it a name, Notify Approved, and click OK. We click To Field and the context window opens automatically. We switch to the Context tab and drag the Requester column to the To field. We click the Subject field and type the subject line, Your leave request has been approved. We click Content field of the email and type the email body, Congratulations, your leave request has been approved, and drag the Leave Request Reason column from the context window. To finalize our template, we click OK. Next, we clear the value of email language. To continue the configuration of our email activity, we select the value for the Regarding Entity Type field. Here, we select our Leave Request table from the list. In the Regarding Entity ID, we select a context variable. We type $opening brace to open the context window. In this window, we expand the Generic section and select the variable CRMB ID. This is a standard variable for our process that contains the ID of the main entity of our process. In our case, the ID of our leave request. The configuration of this email step is complete, and we click OK. Connect the following steps. When HR approves Yes to Set Approved status, then to Notify Approval, and to the end of the process. Connect the Else branch of the multiple condition when the request does not require HR approval and route directly to the Set Approved step. Select the email step and press Ctrl+D to duplicate this step. We place this new step after the Set Rejected step. We rename this step to Notify Rejected. We configure this step by clicking the Configure link. We need a new email template. We click the plus button and give it a name, Notify Rejected, and click OK. We configure this template like the previous one. Click OK to finish. Select the newly created email template from the drop-down list and click OK to complete the configuration. We use the connector tool to connect these shapes. The No branch of the HR approval to the Set Rejected, then this to the email, and to the end of the process. Let's not forget to connect when the manager rejects to the existing Set Rejected status. Our process is complete. We are ready to deploy. To do so, we click Publish in the AgileXRM toolbar. As this is the first time we publish this process, we must set the process permissions before publishing. This only needs to be done once and can be changed anytime afterwards. We leave the default option and click Update XRM for the runtime permissions. And then leave the default options to create the additional permissions. Once the basic permissions are set up, we click Close to continue the publish process. The Publish screen is shown. We see that we are about to deploy the first version of our process. We can enter some optional version comments and decide when to release this version. For the moment, we leave the default options and click OK to publish the process. Our process is deployed and ready to be used. However, we haven't configured when and how this process will start. We want to start our process when a new leave request is submitted by an employee. To do this, we will use a workflow from Power Platform. We go to make.powerapps.com. We click Solutions, switch to Managed, and open our solution. We see the solution objects, and we notice there's a workflow named when a new leave request is created. We click on this process to edit it. A new browser tab opens with the workflow editor. In this editor, we click on the Add Step drop-down button and select Start AgileXRM Process option. A new action is added to the workflow. We click the button Set Properties of this new action. In the new window that opens, we select the process template name we want to start from the list, and we click Save and Close. This action is configured. We click Save and Close. Back into our solution objects list, we select the workflow and click the Turn On button. The workflow is now active. Once the activation is complete, we can test our process. To test our process, we create a new leave request. Enter some details: reason, unpaid leave, requester myself, leave type, unpaid leave, start date, end date, and some additional comments, and click Save. At this point, the leave request row has been created in the table in Dataverse. This will kick off the workflow we activated, which in turn will start the AgileXRM process we have designed. We see there is a new tab called View Process. If we click on it, we see the AgileXRM Process Manager with a process diagram. Notice this is the same process we designed using Visio, but now it's running. The start step is completed, and the gear represents the process waiting for this leave request to be submitted. We created a new leave request with the default status of draft. When we update the status to Submitted and click Save, we see that the process continues automatically. The process changes the status to Manager Approval. Let's quickly refresh to see this change. Status has been updated. Back to the View process, there's an active activity task. If we click on it, we see the details of this task, who has been assigned to, when it was assigned, and when it's due. We can also see this information in the Timeline component of the General tab. Here we see a Manager Approval task assigned to Buster Keaton and due on this date. This is a standard task activity from Power Platform. Users can manage their tasks using the dedicated list we have on the left, but we also can open this task directly from the timeline using this button. We open this task, we see a customized task form, in this case, the Manager Approval task form. We can have several different task forms to manage this task. However, if we try to switch to another form, the process that governs this task knows which the correct form is to complete this task and forces me to use it, reverting to it. We configured this setting in our process. In this form, we see the leave request details and a section to take a decision. If we select Reject, a new control appears asking me to enter a rejection reason as a required field. In this case, we select Approve and simply click Mark Complete. This task is now complete. Back to our leave request, in the View Process tab, we see that the process has moved on. The manager's decision has been considered in the process and has moved on to the next stage. A business rule has been evaluated considering the leave type. In this case, because it was an unpaid leave, the process followed the corresponding outcome and updated the request status to HR Approval. If we refresh, we see the updated status, HR Approval. Now there is an active task activity called HR Approval. We see it as a task assigned to a team. We go back to reviewing the timeline in the General tab. The Manager Approval task is complete, and there's an active task assigned to the HR team. The HR team will see this activity in their to-do list, but here we are going to open it directly from the timeline. We see the form HR Approval Task displayed, assigned to HR team. In the section to take a decision, we choose Approve and click Mark Complete to complete this task. This task is completed. We are taken back to our request. Looking into the process, we see that the process continued and considering HR's decision, updated the status and sent an email. This process is now complete. Let's refresh to see the updated status, Approved. We review the timeline where the HR approval task is completed, and the email has been sent and logged here. We can expand the details of the email and see it notifies the requester that the leave request has been approved. Feel free to submit more requests of different types. Choose to approve or reject to test your process. For now, this is the end of this quick start tutorial video. Please refer to other videos to continue improving your knowledge of the AgileXRM platform.